we all come here for different reasons today, but that's great. That's what makes an even richer group here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience, because that's just, what I know best. And, when thinking about preparing what would I describe as the meditative mind in practice in the classroom, I thought about how Krishnamurti talks about meditation isn't just a sitting practice where we take the time to meditate per se, and that it needs to really be something that we are actively doing and leading like a meditative life, which is kind of the way that I approach learning with my 10 and 11-year-olds in 5th grade, that we are going to embark on this year-long journey of becoming aware of ourselves, of each other, better observers, better listeners, and all these things in our daily moments, so that it becomes part of just the way that we live each moment together. And I think kind of looking at what that is in the classroom, for those of you who are wanting to hear some kind of concrete thing, it changes, because the makeup of the students and what they come in with every day changes. So one thing that I have learned about fostering meditative practice in the learning environment is to be forever flexible, and really taking a lot of cues from a lot of different things. So then I am, as the educator, practicing that same meditative awareness, not only of myself, but where my students are and how they're going to interact with whatever material is in front of us for that day. And I think it's easiest to start talking about it by talking about some of the things that I don't do in the classroom, things that would not be conducive to creating and building a meditative mind in the classroom. And those are things like I don't set up rewards or punishments or consequences for any type of behavior and academics in a way that would be like enticing the kids to. I don't coerce them to participate in this educational experience. I make it really clear at the beginning that the kids are coming of their own free will at this age of 10 and 11 to be able to get the most out of their learning experience that they can on their own, and I'm going to kind of co-facilitate that. So while I am seen as perhaps an authoritarian as the teacher, I really try to balance that out by letting them know that I will be guiding them through this school year when we start from the beginning. What else does it not look like? I really try to practice. We have certain standards, and we have certain things, goals and benchmarks we have to meet by the end of the year, and I value all of that. But I also know that in delivering that, it's really important that we value what is going to be most enriching for the kids. They bring so many different opinions, welcome, and strengths to the classroom, that they are also really rich in terms of teaching us as well. And so while I have a year scope and sequence of what I'm going to teach, and I'm very well versed in all of the 5th grade standards of mathematics and U.S. history and writing standards and science and etc. The one thing that I need to make sure I am also aware of is what the kids are most going to be open to. And with that approach to academics, I really try to follow less is more, so that we can get really deep into the topics that the kids are really interested in, because that is when they can really go into their own inquiry as a student and explore their own fantastic minds. Because these kids are smart, you know, and they come in with so much when they walk in that door. And if I approached that any differently or expected anything different from them, it would change the whole playing field. So that's you know, I try not to impose my agenda or my ideas without, again, being flexible and aware of what their needs are. And kind of give an example of how that might look in the classroom. This year in particular, when we were studying in U.S. history about, you know, we went through the founding of our country and the first 13 colonies and on through the American Revolution. And the kids were gathering their information from a bunch of different sources: conversations with parents at home, textbooks, internet information, library books. You know, we had all this wealth of information, film and media. And so they're gathering all this information, and I started watching this kind of culture of this bias developing within the classroom of like who they were rooting for, or what they thought was fair and not fair in just by learning these historical facts. And one day, someone in the class said something about the British or something, and someone else said, "Well, I wonder how they teach this in England." And I said, "Wow, that's a really great question. You know, let's explore that. What do you think they are saying to 5th graders or whoever's learning it at that age in England about the stuff that we're learning about it in America? And where do we need to look at our mind and our thoughts and our conditioning to better understand this historical event?" And they were so excited. It was like opening up, every time you open up a little bit of freedom for them to explore something that makes sense to them, they will run with it. And so just with that one little, you know, giving them permission to explore that, to be aware of the fact that it was okay, you know, to maybe look at a different side of it, to maybe explore it. So then they wanted to start researching, well, how could we find out? You know, what do we do? Who knows, you know? And they started doing different stuff online, and we talked to some people who had been teachers in England and got some different perspective on it. And you know, it was really interesting just to watch things change, and it was just through this one particular, you know, lesson that carried on for a while, but it was through this particular coming together of their interests that we started having an understanding that was never there before. That I wouldn't have known to say, "Hey, how do you think they teach this in England that particular day?" Right? It's a great question. I've probably thought about it a ton of times, you know, knowing how biased some of our teaching materials are, right? But had I ever addressed it, had I ever opened it up until they asked that question? No. But I was so grateful that it was asked, because it made their experience with the material so much more important and on a universal level. Welcome.
Thank you.
So that kind of ties in with what I try not to do, is to impose too much of what I think the road is we need to take, and the outcome, or what the outcome needs to look like, you know, once we get there. Because once I do that, I then change their ability to take charge of their own thinking and their own minds in that situation. What else don't I do? Well, at Oak Grove, we all go by our first names. So it's interesting that the kids come from all different, some of the children have been there since preschool all the way through. Some have just come in the last couple of years, and so they're newer to the campus. But all of them have a recognition about how important the community is at Oak Grove School. And so what I don't try to do is I don't try to do kind of what I'm doing here, stand at the front of the room and lead, lead. Yeah, exactly. We spend a lot of time on the floor in 5th grade. I spend a lot of time on their level. But I don't ever, there is a way to be able to evoke what I want them, where I want them to go with the academics, without me having to impose an authoritarian, a fearful type of authority. Come on in, welcome. And so I really try to avoid that, which would mean that there's no shame, there's no calling out when something is happening. Everything I try to approach as open and fair ground. So there's a real understanding in the classroom that they can explore anything. Now, I'm a human being, and there are days when I'm way more flexible to be open to change, shifting, but there isn't a day that goes by that I won't take that suggestion in and then maybe come back the next day and say, hey, I want to revisit what you guys were talking about yesterday. I wasn't in that space, and now I think maybe we can go deeper into that. So really not hanging on to that is important to allow the kids to explore their own thinking. What else does it not look like? It is not me giving all the information. It is not one subject compartmentalized into one little cube. Everything just kind of blends into each other so that they can make the most sense out of it. What does it look like? Well, we spend a lot of time, I think one of the most important things when looking at encouraging the kids to live a meditative life is, again, that awareness. We do a lot of self-reflection in 5th grade. Self-reflection on ourselves as a classroom community. If there's a conflict, we address it as a group. People aren't singled out because everybody has something valuable to say when something arises. And that gives them a voice and also a skill of being able to feel like they are a valuable member of the community and how things get solved and how things get put into place. So there's a lot of ownership from them. And in that community, it has to be, the classroom environment has to be safe. These guys need to feel like it's a really comfortable, safe place, because I require a lot of self-reflection where they are sharing what they discover about themselves and their thinking. So in order for someone to be able to do that, they need to be able to feel safe. And in 5th grade, when you're just going from that time where you're maybe for the first time realizing you can have a little independence from your family or from the classroom unit, it's a real daring thing to take that leap to say, I'm going to be open and honest and speak from the heart when I share about my insights about myself in front of all of my peers. So creating space for that on a daily basis is something that we do from the first day of school. And we do that in many ways. We do self-reflective writing every day. The students, like I said, they reflect on their academic performance as well as being able to talk about what maybe our social experience was, whether it was a conflict out on the ball field during break, or a particular subject that was so confusing that some of the kids were brought to tears. And we all come together and we brainstorm, what can we do with this situation? And how can we address this without pointing out the one person, but as a classroom community? And that's been incredibly successful with this age group in terms of building a place where they feel safe almost immediately. I mean, not, from the day they walk in, but within a couple of months, amazing things can start happening within that classroom just because they feel so comfortable with one another and expressing their feelings. At the end of every day, we take time to hold a closing circle. And in our closing circle, we sit and we listen to one another. And we get to pick what we're going to talk about based on what we think the need is. So like I said, if it's a classroom conflict, we may all go around and share about it. If it's just, sometimes it's just, what's your favorite fruit? And we just go around and listen to what everyone's favorite fruit is without thinking, oh, what's my favorite fruit? What's my favorite? That I'm really listening to what Pablo's saying about watermelon without thinking about what my response is going to be. Because active listening is a really important tool in building that meditative mind. And so we do this active listening circle and this sharing from the heart every single day. And this year it's morphed based on student requests into a 15-minute sharing circle and then 5 minutes of silence together, sitting silence together, which for fifth graders at the very end of the day is no easy task. But they start watching the clock. If we're getting, like math hasn't wrapped up and they're concerned that we're not going to have enough time for that 5 minutes because one, they find it's a challenge, and two, they have all expressed how much it means to them to, as a group, sit in complete silence. And I think that's a really powerful commentary on where all of this within the classroom day has brought them as learners, that they value their educational community within that classroom so much that they want to be able to listen to each other and end every day together on a good note before we say goodbye. So that the next morning when we all come in, it's a fresh new day, we're seeing things, new and afresh again, and have a chance to walk across that amazing campus that they get to enter every day and have a fresh start. And so I thought it would be kind of neat, being that that we're already kind of in a circle, if we took a second maybe and shared in a circle very much in the way that I would do so with my fifth graders. With the premise that we are going to share from the heart and also allow it to be a safe environment to do so. And usually there's a student in my classroom who will be the council circle leader that day. And they would start by banging our drum, which indicates that we are coming together. And so the kids might be packing up their backpacks or putting away their books and such, and then the drum bangs and they know, okay, switch gears. And they come to the circle quietly, which makes me laugh, because they're fifth graders. And they all sit in a circle. And then we get ready to pass around the talking piece. And the talking piece is held by each person who speaks. And no one else talks except for the person with the talking piece at that time. And that's how we kind of set up the closing circle every day in order to share. And the council leader would say what the subject was today. Like, share about how you felt when you had to do the peer editing of your friend's essay today. And you knew that they were in trouble because they hadn't spelled any of their words right. And so somebody might start and say, well, that wasn't my experience. And we go around and we talk about this particular event. So what I'd like us to do today, if you can actually get into the mindset I'd like you to think about when you were 10 or 11 years old in the classroom. Welcome. And think back about what that experience might have been like, if you can. And think about what kind of encouragement or meditative space would you have benefited from in 5th grade? What opportunity to say, I need this addressed? What thing would you possibly pick? Is there something that you can find from back then that if we had only done it a different way, I might have been able to get more out of my 5th grade experience at that time as a 10 and 11-year-old? How many people can even remember something from that just is like a glaring memory? Yeah, I have lots of them, which is why I became a 5th grade teacher. So I'm wondering, do people feel comfortable? Could we go around and could we just say something from 5th grade that they wish maybe there was a safe space to explore deeper when they were that age? And as always, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can pass. And by passing the stick to the next person, you're indicating that you would just like to be a listener. And that's fine as well. So I'll start just because maybe that gives you an idea of how to go, and then I'll pass. I can see your face. So don't. So actually, you know what? I would love it if people in the back, do you feel comfortable kind of coming a little closer in? Can we make room for our friends in the back, maybe in a bigger circle? No? You don't want to? Okay, that's okay. That's how better. Oh. Well, see, now there is something that after you are in a community that feels safe enough wouldn't feel as daunting to share, would be the hope. Well, when I was in 5th grade, I spent quite a good deal of time in the principal's office. I was outspoken, but passionate about what I was learning, but didn't quite manage the control part of that well enough. You know, and I wish that there had been an opportunity for me to not only share about the things I was passionate about, but also learn the balance of that so that I could have been more open to what was going on around me instead of so focused on what getting my needs met, I think was probably a way of putting it. And I had a fantastic 5th grade teacher. He was amazing. And I'm forever grateful for him not treating me with shame, but really for survival, just trying to remove me from the situation when he needed to continue teaching. But I still look to my kids now. I have a soft spot for those in the classroom who have the same similar disposition. It's important to create space for that as a teacher now.
A lot of what I remember from school is because my mom literally saved like every report card I ever got with teacher comments and things like that, so I could go back and kind of review things. But one of the things I remember was in 4th grade, I had a lot of trouble relating to my peers, and my teacher decided that isolating me was the solution to that. And I kind of later learned that that probably wasn't the best idea. But by 5th grade, it was really funny because I ended up being class vice president and like doing this like big presentation about the first presidential inauguration, and that was like kind of like the the intro to like running for office that this buddy of mine did, that we were running together as a team. And by the end of that school year, I ended up getting an award as the class sidekick. So I made sort of a transition from 4th to 5th grade where I wasn't relating very well to my peers, to being everybody being my friend and me being a friend to everybody by the next year. But I remember one particular incident that there was like a class art project that we were working on, and I put a lot of effort into it. And because of all the effort I put into it, I won an award, and it was like a little bag of candy. And anyway, this one student in my classroom, he stole my bag of candy and ate it. And I found out because I saw it in his desk, and I saw the bag was open and everything was empty. And I went to the teacher and I tried to get a solution from her as to how to solve that, and I was basically just brushed off. And I think if maybe we could have had something like you were talking about, where we kind of all got together and just kind of talked about what happened, I think I would have been more at peace with my feelings about what happened, and maybe more forgiving of the boy who took my award too. You know, but because it wasn't really resolved in any kind of like productive way, I just ended up holding this resentment for the rest of the year for that one boy. You know, so I think it would have been better to have like a group meeting and talk it out. So, thanks.
I think my story starts a little earlier. I'm from New York, and I went to a private school, a Catholic school, and I didn't take to authority very well in the first grade. And even attending class. The first day of school, my mother left me off in the hallway, and I saw the Red Cross. We had to go in and get a shot. And I was deathly afraid of doctors. And my mom left me in that line in the next classroom. I was in the classroom before that Red Cross, out the window, and before my mom got to work, I was already home. That's how I started out the first grade. And I flunked the first grade in private school. They did not pass me. And I went to the second grade, and then finally in the third grade, I was given a task of just spelling the word United States when the Monsignor was in the classroom. And I spelled that. And my teacher came and gave me a big red star. And from that moment on, I got 100 in every test, and I did very well. But I was back a class. When I came to California in the 4th grade, in public school, I was so far advanced because I believe the private school was a little more advanced in their techniques. Okay, so we'd get A's in every class, and the teacher used me in the 4th grade. Now I'm a year older, so what would I be? I was 10 in the 4th grade. And she used me as an assistant. And I tell that story today, and they say, well, teachers can't be, to do things, help grade papers, do class projects, because I was getting A's on every test. And I came here to California and went to another private school, and I wasn't received, on the campus very well by the other students out in the playground. There was a little bullying going on. So I'm just wondering, is that do they really make it a point at that, because that's a critical age, the 4th and 5th grade, to really, because there's where some kids they get lost. It seems to me a critical age in school, 4th, 5th grade. And so I had to go through this ordeal of proving myself with the bullies out on the playground. And the nuns observed this going on. They just let it go on and let us resolve it. But I don't think that was the proper way. But it worked out. And that's my experience of the 5th grade. And that was in Southgate, California. But from that point on, I've always enjoyed school. And I found it difficult to get real good teachers in all the years I went. There's only a handful that I can remember that had an impact on my life, as far as just teaching beyond their particular subject, teaching about life. And there was very few of them. that I had, but there are a few that I give credit to today. And that's it.
I don't like doing this. And this stems from school, because I was shy in school. I hated school, didn't like school, never wanted to go to school, but I went through school until I graduated high school. They kept on passing me, they didn't care if I learned or if I didn't learn. And it was just a horrible experience throughout, from kindergarten until I graduated. They didn't teach me anything. I grew up thinking I was stupid. I was ignorant. I didn't know anything, and I was never gonna learn. I didn't know what I was gonna do when I graduated from high school. But I got a job at the House Cure Clinic in Los Angeles. And then all of a sudden I could work in audiology, knew everything the audiologist knew, electronystagmography, people that had tumors and testing. And I think that was maybe, I don't know, in my 30s, when I was giving a test, and I realized I'm not stupid. Because I could do everything that everyone else did that went to college. But throughout the whole school, it was just horrible. That's it.
I come from India, so about I think we are discussing when we are very small kids, not very long experience. And we do remember. But I'm not as we are discussing. We have discussed freedom of thought, freedom of discussing and reading, and all these things are not there. Teacher teaches something, tries to teach, and we something we are learning and getting by heart only, trying to do well and secure good marks only. That's was there. And in class 5, an arithmetic teacher once came. He was a good teacher, but he caught everybody, caned for no reason, gave some canings, 10 to 12. I told till now I don't know what was the reason.
Yes.
But I expressed to my parents. Parents were very much sorry. They could not come to their master or something like that. So forgot. So we are happy to learn something and in that atmosphere and secure good marks. Fortunately, I was understanding well and I was standing first or so. So that was my content. But so much, now we were afraid of the master who was in the high school. His office was around 300 feet away. Whenever he sees some children are making trouble, some teacher might not be there, so he will be coming to a piano and giving canings. That was there. So there was no problem that time. There was no thought of how to improve the education system. Whatever was there, of course, some teachers were there, educationally trained or Bachelor of Education. Some teachers did get that facility only with postgraduate, undergraduate, BA, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. There were teachers there. And some teachers were the matriculates, high school pass out. So that time was there in high school. We didn't have science teacher for long periods, and a science teacher came, we were very happy. So that was the state of affairs. Now the things have deteriorated again. Government schools, they do not have a lot of teachers. Private schools are taking over, but they are again, a lot of money has to be paid there, so all cannot afford. So things are going like that in India. Still then, they are competing very much up in high school level, graduation level, pre-professional, science level, and they are trying to do well and come to foreign countries for higher education. Education pattern more or less remains same. Regarding Krishnamurti name, I heard while I came to Bhubaneswar, the capital of an eastern state of India, Odisha. Some people tried to start a Krishnamurti school there. They collected some money, but they disappeared with the money. So now in Odisha there is only a Krishnamurti center at Cuttack. Some discussions going on there, translating books in Odia language, and that is the only center. They may start a retreat in some other district like Angul, they are telling. So slowly it will, the effect will come upon the school system. And I understood that a lot of books are sold, Krishnamurti books, in the various book centers that are organized there in every township in our state, in other places also in India. And people are interested in their purchasing books, but again, organization is required to start new centers of education, etc. Though in the government level there are some discussions taking place for improving the pattern of education. There are so many thought leaders in education like Sri Aurobindo, Krishnamurti, and some other Ramakrishna Mission have got their education system. I hope the education will flourish in India soon.
Yeah, personally, I kind of got along with my teachers in school. I did pretty good. But I didn't think they'd give me space enough to daydream. I think the daydream is very important. You kind of resolve some of your problems that you can, and you're starting to mature at that age. You're starting to feel the sexual things and all of that. And that's just a good time to daydream, trying to solve it, how to treat people, how to go about it. And so I thought they didn't give us enough time to daydream. And that's about all I can say.
So I grew up in Sri Lanka, and when you were talking, I was raking my brain to find what happened in 5th grade. And I really can't come up with a story as such, except that that time they experimented starting the school late. So teachers when they started the school late from 12 to 4. So I do remember going home and telling, prepare me a good lunch so that I can go have my lunch in school. And I did go to school earlier so that I could play and have my lunch and the classes. And I had a very good learning experience. I loved to read, and I got along very well in school. I got good grades. That's all I remember, but I'm sure there must be things that I don't remember.
So it's interesting, in thinking about all my grades, there was a lot of school I enjoyed. I even saw the teachers and their names and all that. 5th grade is one that I had the most boring teacher of my entire educational career. I can't remember. And I remember we wrote essays, and I finished, and I'd always go up and say, could I draw now? And she said, you should work on tomorrow's homework or write something. She was big on writing, which was and I would write a poem anyway, and try to relate it to the essay, make some way that it could work, and I remember I don't know, I just questioned it. I just thought, why? And the other thing is, I had 2 friends in that classroom, Melissa and Jenny, and I don't know how we did it, but out of the boredom, we somehow figured out if we together chatted or something, she'd send us into the cloakroom, and we would sit in a circle and chat in what we thought was heaven. So it was the oddest year. So, I don't know. Thank you.
In my childhood, I studied in a school, combined primary and middle school. Actually, up to grade 5 was scheduled. Grade 7, we used to go school every day. We enjoyed playing and we did less. So, in my childhood, I enjoyed the whole school up to middle class 7, grade 7. So, it is a good memory of mine.
So that was my mother. I remember 3 grades. Grade 3, I was almost peeing in my pants. And the teacher, his name was Purohit, a great teacher, he says, go to the restroom. The restroom was all open fields. 4th grade, the teacher was Pradhan. He was kind because he had a big field. He would come in a motorbike, so he did not get his sustenance from the salary. The 5th grade teacher was Mr. Satpathy. He was the headmaster. And one of his comments once was, oh, she doesn't read well, but so what? She has good clothes to wear. Because he was making money from tuition of her dad. My dad was not giving any tuition, so I didn't go to school for 2 days. He beat me up and I peed in my pants totally. And then I came home and I cried, locked up in my room. My mother detected that. And then in a couple of days it came out that the headmaster beat me and I peed in my pants. So my dad wrote a letter to the DPI, and then he would always be very somewhat respectful to me. Oh, has your dad written anything more? But many years later, when I got into some engineering school, he came and he sat in front of our house and said, oh, he was very proud of me that, oh, so many of our students have gotten into this engineering college. Our school has done well. I said, yes, sir. And I had no bad feelings. About the meditative mind, the only meditation you could do is if you wrote well in the exams. I think you guys are doing a fabulous job, and of course this is first world. This was India.
He is my son.
Let's see, I'm trying to think, I can't remember too much what happened in the 5th grade. I came to this country and started school in the 3rd grade. And coming from South America, it was a little difficult getting used to the culture, the climate, the language, of course, is difficult. But I didn't have any either good or bad memories until I went through the 6th grade. At that time, I really had a good time being part of the classroom. I think it was, they established a community of students, and I felt part of that. And we had projects to do. One of the things we did was the school newspaper, and we mimeographed things. This is back when we had to do these drums with ink, and we would roll out these papers, and that was our school project. But in terms of anything dramatic, no, I didn't have anything throughout those first few years.
Well, I'm gonna be brief, but basically because I don't remember almost anything from 5th grade. And I think that's quite sad, because when one is a child, one would like to learn new things, experiment, create things, but I really didn't have any of those experiences while I was studying, not only in 5th grade, but throughout my whole studying career. So that is quite sad. Nothing bad happened to me. That's not so bad, because at least I had good teachers, good people that I could see as a good examples. But they were not good educators, or they didn't know how to do better in the way that we didn't have the chance to really be creators of things, of our own projects, develop our own ideas. And right now, I've been a teacher, and that's what I try to focus on more on, giving the kids that chance to really express themselves, give them some freedom, although very often we teachers, we don't have that much freedom, because authorities, the administrators don't let us do many of the things that we know our kids would love to do. But yeah, that's basically my experience. And from that experience of not remembering anything, now I try to make kids really live on what they are doing, and learn from what they are trying to learn on their projects or whatever.
What I remember is that I wish that we could talk more with our friends in the class, and because I wanted to talk with my friends, but there was no time, never, for that, so never ever. And that's one thing. Then I remember that my teacher was pretty mean, and he didn't take us on field trips or anything like that, and he canceled the Christmas party, and we organized ourselves to buy stuff and bring chips and things like that to school, and we organized our own party at recess time. And yeah, I also remember that I was curious about so many things, but school wasn't about those things. School was about something else. That was bowling, and easy but bowling. And
So I studied 5th grade in India, and then I used to have like six different teachers. For every subject there is a different teacher. And then in most of the classes, including 5th graders, there used to be only 1 or 2 teachers who are good, and all other teachers used to just come to the class just to as a duty, just an authoritative, just come to the class and then tell something, and then meaning like nothing, like they don't like what they teach, or what they don't love the subject that they are teaching. So it could have been very good that if the teacher likes what they are doing. Not only that, I think it applies to any field. And then like there used to be a lot of punishments for even small mistakes.
In 5th grade, I think I had no passion for learning, but when we said 5th grade, I was like, oh yeah, Mrs. McCloskey. And I had much more passion towards my teacher, and it just I don't think we had, in terms of being given space to talk about what we were thinking, feeling, it was much more imitation. And I think fairly young, I kind of clued into what parents and what teachers liked, and it became very easy to kind of navigate that. But there was no passion for the subject. It was just making it through and, satisfying the teachers.
I was trying to think like what I should really speak about, because I do have very distinct memories starting from my first grade and every year after that, first, second, to my 12th. So anyway, I just I'll try to just say a few things a little bit about what starting from first grade. So I think the most distinct memory of my first grade or even before that was the first experience with authority. Right? I was basically wanted to go to the restroom, and this class had just begun. Teacher said, everybody go sit in your seats, right? But I had the courage to go up and say, teacher, I have to go to the restroom. So I went up, said, no, go back, just go and sit. No, teacher, no, go back and sit. So I was really like, I don't know what more to say. 3 times I approached her, and she wouldn't, even listen to what I had to say, right? She didn't hear me out. So I went back, I was very uncomfortable. I was shifting, I was saying, okay, let the class, Daba get over and then I can run. But I didn't dare to even ask her one more time. And after being rebuffed 3 times without it being heard of. So actually I did, dirty my pants, and my neighbors found out, and they, they said, snickering and all that. And so it was a very embarrassing day for me. I mean, I had to leave the class, clean up my clothes, dry them, and the whole afternoon was basically spoiled, ruined, right? And even after that, it took me many years ever to get the courage to actually, open up and say something to a teacher. So I think what I was really young, I was not in the first grade, I was kindergarten basically, right? So I mean, I just realized that now thinking back about it, that even if the teacher uses authority once, even once to to control a kid, that can have a lasting impact. It's not that how many rights you do, it's the one wrong that you do. It may just leave a lasting scar, right? So it's like I was thinking about it, like how much it affected me that one incident. Like I was not even 6 or 7, like not even 6. I was 5 probably, and it took me many years. And I was throughout my childhood a very shy person, and I wouldn't speak up. No, I can't blame everything on that one incident, but definitely it had an impact. I mean, the whole afternoon, I'm literally without my pants, sitting in the toilet, hanging it up to dry. And the ayah, person helping me out, she's like, oh God, this kid, he doesn't even know, he's 6 and doesn't know how, he's not even potty trained. It was not that. I knew what I had to do, and I was like saying, no, go back. And now we don't know what to do, right? And it's big class, and the teachers, she never again asked, it's okay, I have to make you all sit down. But now what was it that you were, trained off? She never came back to me, right? So that was it. So anyway, that was the first incident. Now, kind of fast forwarding to other classes, let's say to the 5th grade, which you were asking about. Well, there was the Hindi teacher in my class, right? I had changed my second language or first language a couple of times because we moved from New Delhi to northern India to southern India, my native place of Andhra Pradesh, and further south to Tamil Nadu. So I had changed my language many times, the language of learning. So in 5th grade, I was now suddenly studying Hindi as my second language. English was like the common language, and the other language was Hindi. So I had never studied Hindi in either my 4th grade or 3rd grade, the past. I was studying Telugu in the previous class. Suddenly I'm in 5th grade, and I had not done the previous 2 grades in Hindi. So suddenly I started to write essays in Hindi and be taught in Hindi. So I was finding it very difficult, And I'd read an essay about a cow or about a coconut, and I'm like, I can't even construct a full sentence in Hindi, I'm struggling. And for some reason, my mom thought I shouldn't lose touch with my mother tongue, and I was going for tutorials in Telugu, which is another language, in the evenings. So I am now struggling 3 times over, right? Struggling with my Hindi in class, struggling with my Telugu in the evening classes, right? Which is not every day, but twice a week. But everywhere I was like not doing good. In Telugu class I look really silly because the other people they're way better than me. In Hindi class I look silly because I'm really like others are getting 80s, 90s, 70s. I'm like 45. This thing, and the person who was closest to me was a Tibetan who had absolutely no clue about the language. He was also from back. So it was like I was way down there, And I used to live in New Delhi and I spoke Hindi very well, and it was like my second language or whatever. I was supposed to know Hindi, and I knew the language, but I was struggling with the written language. All this is okay, but because I knew I was struggling, but what got me real bad was when the teacher. One day in the class, she started describing the answers she got for some essays, and she was criticizing. I realized what I had written in my paper, and she was saying she didn't take my name, which is good. It would have been worse if she had taken my name. It's anonymous. Some people, even after I say this 1,000 times, still make the same mistake, and she kept on pointing out all the mistakes. I knew half of them I was making. I knew them. So I know she's talking about me and other things. And he had the excuse, but he doesn't know the language, so he was absorbed. But I was supposed to know the language. And so it was so bad that never again I felt like doing, like what I meant was, like even though I was doing badly, I was trying, no, I have to do this right, I have to learn. I was still trying, even though I knew I was like way at the bottom of the class, I never felt bad about it. But the day she criticized publicly, even though she didn't take my name, and said something like this, I said, you know what, I'm never going to try to learn this language again. If this is the response, they're going to laugh at me, even though she didn't point me out. I felt so hurt that I never wanted to talk to the teacher again. I never wanted to ask her help. I never wanted to even say, like, can you help me out? She didn't help me. No one helped me. Neither my mom, the teacher, or the school. In spite of that, they criticized me about, saying that some people will never learn. And that was it. I never again wanted to approach the teacher for any kind of help, ever again. So that was my second bad experience. So, what I'm going to say, sometimes people say, it's okay to point out, criticize without taking the person's name, but I'm saying, even if you don't take the person's name, you can still hurt the person.
Yeah.
Because they know you're talking about them.
Excellent.
So I just thought I should, just mention that. Then, so there are two, I would say, the bad experience I had. There are others probably, you can ignore them. But there's one more thing I want to mention. In my first grade, you would think first graders are, I'm talking about children now, are very, nice guys, and they're not very bad people. But you'll be surprised to know that in my first grade, I had a class bully. And he was such a bully, and they are bullying, but I'm limited to what kind of a bully, right?
Yes.
He was class topper. He was excellent in studies, or maybe second or whatever. So he made a class monitor, right? So the school now gives authority to the person who does well. So you're the best student, so you are the monitor, as I said. And the teacher would sometimes, have to attend something. They would leave the class and say, you keep the kids quiet. I'll be back in 5 minutes. They are talking to the principal or some urgent business, or maybe they have to just go to the restroom, right? So now this guy is in charge of class. He would literally walk up to people, and if you make a noise, he would take a stick or something like what we had to call a scale. He would actually push it down people's throat. So you don't talk. Okay, you don't make a noise. And if you ever feel about him to the teacher that he is doing this, he and his whole gang of kids would they would bully you even after you leave the class. And you know that he's a big gang leader. Whenever he walks on the campus, he has 20 people following him around. James, James. So he's a big guy. So you knew that, don't mess with James, right? You just knew it. And that left, for some reason, I was not affected by that much. For some reason, I was very brave in those days. And I said, hey, you can't, mess with me. And I would provoke him, but I was not scared about him. But then, fast forward, again, 5th grade, I was in a hostel, and I was again living in we had about 30 people in the hostel. My second experience with a very kind of violent leader. Now, here, the matrons, or we call them matrons or house mothers or whatever, they look after the kids, 30 kids, and they had trouble dealing with 30 kids of different ages and all that. So what they would do, if say Ram Mohan, if the other king, Ram Mohan, you keep this kids quiet. And he was again like a terror, you know. And nobody could challenge him, so much so that the kids would listen to Ram Mohan much more than a 35-year-old lady, right? A 35-year-old lady couldn't control the kids, but Ram Mohan says, keep quiet. Everybody is like this. And I think the reason why it was so powerful, right? If anybody fell out with Ram Mohan, he would tell the other kids, don't speak to this guy. Right? And that's it. Nobody would speak to you for days. Right? And you're in a hostel, you go to school, you come back home to the hostel, and nobody even talks to you for days. So this silent treatment would go on for days until you made peace with Ram Mohan. Right? Yeah. And he would tell stories about his father, and he comes from a very violent part of Andhra Pradesh, right? So the gang warfare and people killing each other. He would tell those stories, so you would feel very afraid of him in general. So he would use his power, stories about his father and uncles and all that, and his behavior to control the kids. And the matrons were very happy. When they were able to control the kids, Ram Mohan, he's just 11 years old, right? And the whole hostel is terrified of it. So this, I don't know whether I'm affected by it badly or possibly or in what way, but I did tell this to my aunt who is in the city, and she came to the school, hostel and spoke to him and all that. And I kind of felt a little bit safe because I had a place to go. I could run away from here, leave the hostel or go to my aunt who was in the city. But I think there's something definitely wrong about that, obviously, right? But that is something I think one has to pay attention to, right? Like that is how kids are treating each other, right? It's also important in a school environment. And if within a school these things can happen, or a hostel, unnoticed or sometimes encouraged by the other people, the teachers or the school system, that is something to bear. Silent treatment, not talking to the kid, has such a powerful effect on behavior of the students. Someone says, we won't talk to you for the next 3 days. That was the greatest fear of a child, right? Not able to talk to other kids. No one talks to you. So I realized that is one of the most powerful tools. That sounds harmless. We won't talk to you. But at that age, that is much more powerful than anything else. I can tell you that from a direct experience. Someone said, we won't talk to you for 3 days. That beats every punishment that the teacher can even dream of. So that's the thing. But after that, things changed. After that, when I went to Vishwali school, where all these things completely came to an end, where fear of any kind, either by students or by teachers, was not used. There were no rewards. There were very few rewards, very few punishments, right? And it was really a free environment where you could say learning of the subject, and other things as well were encouraged. So that is when I would say I really started to unlearn all this bad behavior which I was influenced by, and hopefully I would think that I have overcome most of the negative impacts of that. But again, on the other side of what things should not be done is how teachers give feedback, how they should or they should not give feedback to children. Right? I realized that my handwriting was very poor. It was terrible. Even today, it's quite bad, right? So I had never improved it. I had never made efforts to improve it. And one of my teachers, English teacher, she said, okay, she took the writing of one of my kids, one of the classmates, and said, look, you see how beautifully he or she writes. And just as an example, she gave a couple of samples. Said, yeah, that's very good. And said, do you know how you write? I said, I know it's terrible, it's very bad. So I know that. I'm aware of it. So she tried to encourage me to say that, look, if you write nicely, what you write is going to be understood by others. If you write very badly, then people don't understand it. Doesn't have to be very beautiful, should at least be legible. She tried to encourage me, and I think that did have a positive impact on it, though it did make much difference to my handwriting. But at least what I'm saying is, when a direct personal feedback is given to the kid, without a public forum, without the report going to the parent, directly to the kid, I think it has, not in front of others, just directly, one-on-one. I think it does make a positive impact. At least you can find out why the child or the kid is either performing well or not performing well with a different certain kind of thing like handwriting or language or you know, from math, anything, any subject, like, why is he not responding to all these inputs? Like, you want to know? I would say just ask the kid. You know, just ask. Like, don't guess. Like, just quietly draw the kid aside and say, why are you doing this? And you may actually, they may give you the answer. Like, they may. Or they may think about it and come back to you and give an answer 2 days later. But trying to tell the parents about it and saying, he doesn't listen, not going to help, I feel. Because there was no explanation of my handwriting was bad, even I didn't know. But just that pointing out that, you know why, your handwriting is not very legible. Other kids write so beautifully. Don't you want to write like them? I think my answer was not really, because I'm not good. So that's the end of the conversation, right? No one has to point out that I'm bad or good, and I already dealt with it. I made peace with it. My handwriting is not very good. I'm not going to make effort about it. I want to focus on other things, right? So then there's no more conflict between me and the teacher. I'll never be judged on my handwriting. If I want to improve, I'll go ask for help. I know the teacher is concerned about it. The day I want to improve my handwriting, I know whom to go to, right? The day I don't want to improve it, I know I'm accepted. So I made a peace with my teacher. She did give me some things to do. I tried it. It did improve a little bit. I said, I'm happy with it now. I don't want to pursue this any further. And so that was the end. Right? So the other negative thing that, this is a good experience. The other negative experience is, actually this is not my teacher, it's actually from the family, my mom. So my teachers are giving me good grades and all the things I was doing later on. But the mom was like kind of overpraising me or giving too much importance to what I was doing good, and saying, and I think that had a negative influence. It kind of demotivated for me from trying harder or to pursue what I was good at or what I really had natural inclination for. They're saying, oh, you're very good at this. I'm like, now I don't feel like trying anymore. Why are you telling me I'm good at this? I might already know it, or I might not know it. Let me just do what I feel like doing. Don't, try to direct me in this direction or in that direction, or try to push me. And she would do it too often. And also, unfortunately, she was also a teacher in the school. For me, that actually didn't make my environment a safe environment. You know what I'm saying? As in the school, because if I wanted to tell something to my teachers, that mom is saying this and I'm getting disturbed by that, or I want to tell something about my teachers to my mom. Now I felt that my mom and teachers were like friends and family type of thing. So I cannot talk about my teachers to my mom or about my mom to my teachers. So I felt kind of isolated in that sense, that I really don't have a friend to share this with. I'm kind of in this by myself. So I need to figure it out. I can't solve this problem now. So even though one of my teachers came to me and said, I'm noticing this, that you are actually very bright. We've seen you for the past 3 years. You get things like this. Right? You're way ahead of, they didn't say way ahead of others, they said you're very good, you're very bright, the subjects, physics and all that. But you aren't doing as well, I hear, in your grades or in the class as much as before. Is there a problem? Or do you think you're not doing well? She didn't say you're not doing well. Do you think you're not doing well? And I said, yes, I am not doing well as I was doing before. I said, why? Why aren't you doing well? And so the same teacher talked about my handwriting, so that I knew I could trust her. She never was judgmental. She only helped me out because she noticed something. So I didn't have the courage to tell her it's my mom, but she keeps telling me these things and it's really bothering me. Because I felt with about teachers that she may talk to my mom and I didn't feel safe. So even though she tried very hard, I couldn't open up. So I hope I've not spoken too much, but I realized that I've given you a flavor of the different kind of things that can happen at any age actually. It doesn't matter 5th grade or 2nd grade or kindergarten or 12th grade, small things, they seem so tiny and insignificant, but to me they left a lasting impression, so I don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry.
Wonderful speech. Lots of experience.
Yeah.
I do have a clear memory of things, so I just thought, let me share it.
And in the spirit of the circle, we'll go to the talking piece now.
I will answer the question, but I feel the heaviness of the traumatic core of being a kid is pushing out the funny things that I remember. So I grew up in northern Canada, and things spread from the U.S. at a certain rate. So you had your summer of love in '69 or '68, whatever it was. It didn't really get up to northern Canadian villages till 5th grade. My strongest recollection of that very first day is the teacher, who was the same teacher in this little village, one class school type of thing the year before. He had gone out and gotten an afro, like a very tight perm. You know, like even white people were, growing out their afros or getting that. And he was, he changed the gym class to be a disco class. So I remember, instead of doing volleyball or soccer or whatever, he would put on the Bee Gees in this open space, and we would just follow his dance moves. And he got us into a lot of black, like James Brown, like funkier stuff. And I just remember the soundtrack to the 5th grade. I don't remember the 5th grade, but I remember feeling the offbeat a little bit more, and that things were loosening up, and he was loosening up, and he was going through something that was, because it was a tiny school, we felt the zeitgeist of loosening up in some way.
So we're all taking it you're a good dancer.
It had an impact, because the album he loved to play the most was Saturday Night Fever. and I think it was the first time I felt inspired by the music. I went home and I did the homework, but I would actually go and try to get my parents to buy some more records. I really wanted to get into this funky or disco music. And they got me a little record player, and I spent a lot of free time in the evenings just listening to that music. And so I came to love it, and I came to actually study music, though I work in other fields. And so I've gone in and out of being a musician. And then when I released my first album, I went back through my iPod thinking, I really missed the warm, soulful sound of the 70s. Everything sounds so digital and electronic now. And I want to record with, 2-inch tape and analog gear and tube amps and all that stuff. And I went and found who was the sound engineer for Saturday Night Fever, which was like the biggest disco album of all time, and he was still alive. And he had also done 3 Cat Stevens albums, 3 Deep Purple albums, and he did Ghost in the Machine by the Police and some, huge albums. But he's sort of a professor emeritus of sound engineering. So I found him, and he agreed to. He was like, "Oh, so nice to hear from somebody again." And we did an album, and it's really kind of got that warm, non-electronic, pre-electronic sound to it. So I just realized, listening, that there's a connection to the Canadian Summer of Love, or whatever it was that loosened this guy up. And I wasn't really that interested in music before, but I came to love it and play my record a lot. So on the traumatic side, I just echo what's been said, that power was never talked about. It was this thing that was not talked about, but it was experienced through the vice principal or discipline, or who was brought, elevated for being a great student, who was never spoken about, and then through bullies and cliques and all that sort of stuff. Power was just sort of navigated and experienced, but no one ever talked about, this is the structure of power, this is how it works. Here's how it's going on in our school. The other thing is, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realized, it occurred to me that I might have this thing called intuition, that I could actually use it to come to decisions instead of analyzing and reasoning. And so, it makes me wonder, maybe that space wasn't opened up for us in a tiny school in Canada at that time, that maybe we focused too much on sort of conceptual symbolic reasoning and not, oh hey, you guys also have this thing called intuition, and here are the spaces where you may want to try using it. But yeah, so a mix of the fun and the traumatic.
I don't remember much from 5th grade. I think 4th, 5th, and 6th were happy years. That's my general remembrance from then. What I think was lacking was something which was not just in 4th, 5th, and 6th. It was something which was throughout all the years, and that was maybe some kind of personal attention, because those were schools that were kind of crowded. This was back in Greece. You moved there on the street. And going there not speaking the language at all, knowing nothing, and going to school without really knowing the language, created a lot of difficulty, I think, in my future in school. Plus, what I've come to realize now, after so many years, I had this thing where I concentrate very much on things that I liked, but I wouldn't be able to concentrate on things that I didn't like math, physics, this, that, and all the other things that I was taught in school. Maybe I didn't like them because of the way they were taught. So I practically lived in my own world that I chose to live in, which was reading my books and doing the things I like to do, learning the things I wanted to learn on my own. And that didn't make me a student because of master. And this was not, I don't remember this ever being handled in what I would consider a proper way now at my age. There was no recognition of, okay, let's do something about this, or any discussion about, okay, let's do something about this. Why is this happening? What can we do? There was always something expected of me which I never achieved, which I never did. And that was coming from the family, and that was coming from the school. So there was always this pressure, which was a burden on my shoulders. And there was no resolution from people who should have resolved it. That's all I can think about. 4th, 5th, 6th.
So you started with saying, what would you have liked, what might have made a difference, and I think it's similar to maybe the two things that were just said, that I was also very shy, and I felt like I was in this world where there was a lot going on, like socially, emotionally, amongst the kids, and in our relationship with each other, and it was, I had no clue what to make of any of it. I was so confused about how to behave, or how to make friends, or what to say, what not to. I mean, it was just like a nightmare. And there was no space to ask anyone for help. There was no attention given to that at all. It was just like you were just kind of thrown in, like kind of Lord of the Flies. You're out on the playground, and stuff would be going on, and if you weren't kind of savvy, and I certainly wasn't, you just were lost. I just remember this feeling of being lost and having no one to go to say help. I don't even know don't know how to deal with any of this. So when I walk around our wonderful school and see just the focus on relationship and how kids are helped to navigate all that feeling, social, emotional side of growing up with the help of adults who have such great affection for them. It's like, I wish there had been that for everyone.
There's one comment. I came from a little village from South India,
and we have to study in our regional languages of Tamil in my case. And my father said, there's no use in reading your language, you will learn English. There is a teacher across the street, 2, 3 streets away. Before you go to school, you go every day, learn something, some English, so you can become somebody. And so I would go to early morning, get up and go. And on my way back, I remember what I would say, CAT, cat, RAT, rat, MAT, map. That book was that little. I completely memorized in no time, no other books to read, and then that was a great experience when I was back there.
You know, there are no serious stories to tell, but one thing I remember in my long academic career is inspiration. I think a teacher's job is not to per se teach, but show how fantastic the subject is, whatever. And I was doing, generally speaking, very well in school and all that. And even in the college days, I was very happy to be in the top few, but you know, no real focus. I was very happy that I'm doing what I'm doing without much effort. Then one teacher came along. He was actually a teacher of physics. So I remember he had this smile just like you have, and he made all these little physics problems interesting. And today probably I know a lot more physics than he does, but I will never forget. He steered me into physics, and that is what a good teacher should do. I do want to say one thing. I didn't even know that you were going to give a lecture here. This afternoon's lecture, I didn't know. But when I parked my car and then one of these kids came along to help me, so I was in a talkative mode almost. So I said, what do you do? And only about 30 seconds before I knew that there was some school here. So I said, let me go on a pleasantly aggressive tack. I said, would you be able to go to any college you want after this? Just to make a conversation. But this kid, who was not one of your chosen spokesperson or something, but he really told me some fantastic things. So I know immediately, I can tell you, no matter in any school, these are not concepts you would find accidentally. You need to make that part of the curriculum right from the word go. Sharing, and I said, what is special about it? He already gave me a good thing that, if you want to go to Harvard, we can go to Harvard, and depending on whatever thing. And he said, flexibility. He said, that is what we have. And he has been here 8 or 10 years, 8 years. So I think congratulations to you that your school seems to be doing very well.
First, I want to thank the teachers in general, and thank you for providing very reasonable textbooks from which I learned a lot. When I help my children with their projects, especially the one about Ireland, I learned a lot, and it stays with me till today. And I've had a lot of the older Indian men and women who related their experiences here. I went to predominantly, I don't know why, Catholic school. Corporeal punishment did certainly exist,
But for me, it was probably because I didn't kneel in front of the chapel when I walked by, rather than the grades. And I did have very inspiring teachers. I drew things, they didn't look quite right. A kind teacher said, "Why don't you draw it like this?" And it suddenly became a flower. But I could see this wasn't going to be my career. I wasn't going to become a Van Gogh. I tried similar things in embroidery. Oh yes, my stitches fell very well, but you know, I wasn't going to be top sellers of embroidery design. Teachers were respected and certainly feared. My father was a mathematical genius. Well, although he didn't expressly say so, he expected I might become one. But I never made the 100 he expected. So you came back with very good grades in biology and other subjects. My father only noticed that it was only 80-something in math. So I couldn't say in my 5th grade I knew the direction where I was going, but I definitely knew I wasn't going to be a gold medalist in mathematics, for sure. Other teachers were very kind, and I don't know why my father never noticed my biology grades, but eventually I kept pointing, here's where I could shine, but he kept saying, what about math grade? It's not that great. So I went to many schools. As I said, I ended up in a lot of Catholic schools, but I appreciate all the teachers. Obviously, you're in a very good school district. Obviously, you're a very inspiring teacher. And eventually, I did get into biology and into medicine. Oh, and oh yes, I stayed with art. Still, and I do a lot of arts and crafts, now for pleasure. And I thank you.
So when I was in the 5th grade, I was in this class. They put all the gifted people with the highest reading groups in one class together. So all the other kids called us dorks, you know. And they probably shouldn't have done that, but I was in that class, and I brought the most projects in for Christmas, and I got really commended for that. And in 5th grade, I had my first boyfriend, you know. And he was a good person, and he called me a few times on the phone, and we didn't kiss or anything. We just talked on the phone. I was too young, I felt like, you know. And then I guess I hadn't thought about it in a long time. I thought about my other teachers in other grades, but I hadn't thought about 5th grade, so it was good to reminisce. Thank you.
My 5th grade, I remember drawing designs. I was not listening to the teachers. I look out of the window and daydream, and always looked at trees, the sunset, the ocean, and I was never interested in what the teachers were saying. And when I was drawing design, I liked the number 5, the shape of the number 5 the most. I found 7, 9 very boring. 5 looks very pretty, so I kept on making designs with 5, I know. And then my father said, if you had put the same attention in your studies, like you're doing designs, you'd excel. And then he would take me at night to listen to Krishnamurti in Bombay, when he gave a lecture at the JJ School of Arts under a tree. And he said, close your eyes and listen to him. And I noticed that I'm more interested in Krishnamurti than the subject that the teachers were teaching. And my father noticed that I was grasping things, even at that early age. And then he said, there's a little box where you put the money, and I said, who's in charge? He said, no, it's based on honesty. Krishnamurti doesn't do that.
and then you just come back and sit. And what else do I remember is, since I went to a Catholic school, the Hindus, they went to church freely. Their parents didn't say anything to them. We came home. We were happy. We went to pray to Christ and Our Lady. And the Hindu parents never said anything to us. There was no guilt at all. We went to church on a regular basis. But when we went to temple, as a kid, the Catholics and Christians were very afraid. They were standing at the door. They wanted to come in, but they were so scared. They really wanted to join the temple in whatever we were playing, but they were so afraid to come in, so full of guilt. And we went freely to churches, even mosque. My parents said, all our parents said, we were allowed to go anywhere. And then, we realized that Hinduism is really not a religion, it's not really a religion, it's just a way of life, Somebody added the ism to it. And another thing I remember in 5th grade is, I'm from a South Indian family, and most of my peer groups are Punjabis and Sindhis from North India. And their lifestyle was so different, I really envy them. They always had diamonds. Their parents always had a lot of diamonds, parents, and they knew all of the movies and certain magazines that I was not allowed to read. And everything looked so attractive to me, the diamonds, the car, the chauffeur, their clothes. And when I went to my South Indian home, I just heard my father talk about Krishnamurti and Swami Vivekananda and Jawaharlal Nehru, and I said, then I would go to their homes. All the glamour looked so good to me. And I come home, and they taught of Mahatma Gandhi. And then at this age, I realized how lucky I am, the values. And now I'm able to live with little, and then those values stay with me. And I'm so glad I was not born in those diamond families. At this stage, and then also when I visited my friends, their food was very attractive. It was junk food, like bhel puri and all that. And my home was all carrots and idlis and all the healthy stuff. Even that was so attractive. And today I'm so healthy at this age, all because of my upbringing. And what else happened? Bombay is cosmopolitan. It's like a little America where you meet people from all over the country. They move in. My father had friends from all different, it was not just South Indians. Everybody visited us. The Gujaratis, the Punjabis, Marwadis. So it was not just South Indians. That's because I was born from Bombay. But if I was born in any southern places like Madras and all, you don't have that exposure. So when I came to America, I didn't have an adjustment to make, because Bombay is like a little America, where people migrate from all over the country. And my father, since he doted on me, because I was the only daughter, he says, all love, but no freedom at all. I come to America, it's all freedom and no love. And to me, I wish I could have a little bit of both now. I didn't realize the value of love in India, because I wanted freedom. And here I get all the freedom to choose the subject in college, which we didn't have back in India. The subjects were, college was much easier here for me. And, but there was no love. And I said, my God, it's nice if I have a little of both. And what else? I guess that's all. I'm grateful for my childhood, although at that time I didn't realize it's value. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the last speaker. I have some people I know have not spoken.
Now, thinking of when I was 10 or 11, probably I can say in this context, the most interesting thing was that I heard Krishnamurti for the first time. And now coming to the main theme, this is meditation in the classroom. And also the theme of this conference or this meeting is meditation. Now, I have heard many times Krishnamurti use the Sanskrit word for meditation called mantra, which means to ponder. And I'm happy to see that you in your school gather the students and ask them to ponder. That's a very good step in that direction. Now, the greatest drawback of my education until I think I started college was this, that ponder means, at least in the conventional academic sense, I'll put it like this: to pass a course, pass a class or an examination is one thing. To know the subject is quite different. Because people can pass but they do not know. That is, they have not perceived the order. Now, to give you an example of what I mean by this logical order, I think a very simple example will do. If you look at any religion as it is organized, what does it consist of? It consists of a priest. The three or four entities are a priest, who may be called the interpreter, the laity, and God. So,
the scriptures?
Or scriptures or books, you may call. So all these four are common to all religions, you find. So that means, in a few words, we can see the structure of the whole thing. Now, the languages that I had to learn, there was no emphasis to see the structure. So I could pass, and I needed a lot of help from my parents and elsewhere in some subjects. So if in the educational setting it means to ponder, then I hardly can think of any teacher who will develop the logical structure. So I myself have tried to do that, and I have been, say, 87 to today, that is 26 years, plus 6 years, 32 years in the college teaching line. And I find that to get to the logical structure, I have to develop it continuously, and over the years I find new dimensions to that. So what I feel, and what Krishnamurti has been saying, ponder. So if that can be brought into the school life, I think you are doing a remarkable job. Thank you very much.
I want to be mindful of our time because we've gone quite a bit over, but I am so grateful that people were willing to share from some of their thoughts and experiences, because I think as we reflect back on what we've heard, there's so much we can learn, not only from our experience and looking back, but also on what we're looking at with the kids who are in our care now. And, I heard so many things that just resonate with me as a teacher, like, the social aspect of children. They are just social creatures, and not allowing, the escape to the cloakroom or the special snack time party or, the disco, whatever. It's like we need to incorporate that and recognize that too. And that the meditative mind does not always have to be solitary and still. It also connects when we connect with each other. And so much of what I heard from you guys reminding me of how important relationship is to nurturing our meditative mind. Relationship with ourselves, relationship with each other, relationship with nature, relationship with the world, you know, and that if that is lacking, what does that do then to stunt our exploration of our intelligence? You know, and, I want to thank everybody for contributing. I learn from every experience I have, whether it's a group of 10 and 11-year-olds or a wonderful group like all of you. And so thank you for being patient and staying beyond the time. But I hope that what you carry with yourself as you leave too is that ongoing conversation about our responsibility as educators, whether we're wearing a teacher hat or not, to the children that we encounter, and hopefully making that experience as they're so open and ready to learn and explore, and that we allow that to happen without crushing it. So thank you. I'm going to adjourn. If anybody hasn't seen the campus of Oak Grove, I do have some photos I'll put up on the wall if you'd like to see, and